Good morning. We'll just wait for Facebook to um, get me live. It's the first time I've spoken to a screen for a sermon, so this is really odd. I do feel like I'm talking to myself. Um, yeah, but I'll manage. Maybe I am talking to myself, and that's okay too. Oh, cool, Josiah's on. Hi, Josiah. Okay, that makes me feel better. And I know David's watching in the other room, so there we go. So we're on Facebook. Just want to make sure we're on Facebook Live. Morning, Logan. Hopefully everyone got the message that we are meeting online this morning and not at the church building. We will be online this week and next week. I'll get Debbie's on Facebook Live. Yeah, for the time being so far, may go longer. We'll just see how things go. But I hope you are all well and have been well. Thanks, Josiah. So this weekend I've just been doing bits and pieces around. I'm just talking while I wait for people to come on. Bits and pieces around the garden, tidying up the house, usual pottering, and of course finishing off what I want to say this morning. David's been downstairs sanding, prepping it to paint. We want to get it all painted up and ready to be used. All right, so we are on 10:01. This week has been, the past week just been, it's been International Women's Week, and it's International Women's Day on the 8th of March, just been. So I actually really struggled to get started on the sermon. I had weeks to write it, and I would usually use some kind of drive or inspiration for a topic that would see me focused, writing, researching, and brainstorming with enthusiasm. But the truth is, I didn't actually know where to start. I wanted to speak on a woman in the Bible, but I feel that I do not know any woman well enough. I know some well-known stories, but I don't feel like I know the woman in depth. I don't know the heart of them, and the focus is usually around Jesus. It got me wondering, how is this such a struggle? Why do I know so little that I couldn't find a starting point for a sermon? I'm 34. I've been raised in a Baptist church, spent a couple years with an Anglican church, and have lived in an intentional Christian community. I've read most of the Bible. I've led within the church for at least 15 years, and at the end of 2020, I completed a graduate diploma in applied theology. How is it that I don't know what to speak on? Why don't I have a spark, you know? Why do I know so very little about women of faith? Kia ora, Nicola. Why haven't I heard more about women in sermons, and why are there no gospels written by women that were included in the Bible? Kia ora, Johanna. At Carey Baptist Bible College, my interest always peaked when the lecturers spoke of women of the Bible. I really wanted to know more. In one of their How Are We Doing surveys, I even suggested that they had a class taught on different women each week. I just wanted to know more. And I still do. If they start that class, I am keen. As much as I wanted to speak to you about a woman mentioned in the Bible today, give her history, describe her calling and her impact, I can't. Morning, Manuela. David and I moved to Wellington in 2016. Manuela, are you freaking out right now? Oh my gosh, she's not going to speak about women. But David and I moved to Wellington in 2016. And after a year of settling in and trying to make it across town to Korore Baptist, we found that the distance was not working. We were literally stopped from going there because a street festival, very Wellington, cut us off from the only route that we knew of how to get to church. During that first year, there was an Alpha course that David was attending, run by our local Anglican church in Hatata, and they combined with the Anglican church in Island Bay. It was a great course for David, but it also reminded him of the Baptist church in Island Bay that he had seen on our first month or so of living in Wellington. David had gone on this massive, God-provoked run out to the sea from the lodge we were staying in, straight to the sea, 1-2 minute left turn at the end. He saw a Baptist church there. He came back an hour later and he told me about it. I brushed it off and I said that we would find something local when we settle. We were just living in temporary accommodation at that time. Well, at the start of the following year, David and I did settle. First, we actually settled on the church, Wellington South Baptist in Island Bay, and that became our new church. We moved into Island Bay a couple months later. We were directly across from that Anglican church and just 1 minute run to the Baptist church. Literally running late sometimes. I quite enjoy that. But the reason I'm saying all this is because it's the story of how God brought us to a place that we had no idea would be so good for us both. And I'm so thankful for God's persistence to nudge us towards Island Bay, his persistence through David. Island Bay is home to the Home of Compassion. Does anyone know what that is? I would love raised hands, anything? No? It was during our years in Island Bay that we learnt about Suzanne Aubert. Anyone know who she is? Maybe you do. Let me know on the chat. I can see it coming up. I think I can see chats on Facebook actually. I think I can see Facebook and YouTube. So, Suzanne Aubert is who I'm speaking about today. And if you do know of her, because I can't tell if you do or not, it's always good for a refresher. Or you can always tell me what I missed. So, Suzanne Aubert, Johanna knows who she is. Suzanne Aubert is someone who we should all know about. Currently, there is a formal process going on with the Catholic Church to recognise her as a holy person or a saint. I'm going to play a video. It's going to be about 5 minutes. But that'll give you the picture of her a little bit. So I will share my screen with you. And I'll see you at the end of it.
One thing good about her was her bravery. She travelled halfway across the world when she was only 25.
She left all that she knew in her home country and came to a new place.
She felt the call and the call of our Māori people.
She became us. She became a Māori. And her whole life and her ways were Māori.
To the Māori people, she was another sent from God. When Mother Mary Aubert came, new life. They could see this new life in her that just changed the whole atmosphere of Hiruhara.
She devoted her life, like every part of her life, to help the poor. She didn't stop to think about herself for a second.
I think she used every tool that she had. You know, she'd studied, she'd acquired all these skills, and she put them to work for the purpose of you know, our most vulnerable.
She discovered and acquired and accumulated the knowledge of natural medicines, but not to acquire it for profit. In fact, to use it for those who were truly sick and those who were outside of the systems of medicine and couldn't receive that.
And I think she saw Christ in everyone, regardless of creed or of all creeds or none.
It was just anyone that needed help and how much she gave to them and she did for them. Like all the things that she did, like the home compassion and the soup kitchens that she made.
She wasn't afraid of politicians. She wasn't afraid of who was the head. If she knew that something was important, then she went straight to the top.
Her faith was just remarkable. Yeah, and that was the basis of everything she did, was her faith in God, that in Him all things were possible. She knew that.
I mean, she lived this great life, but it's like the sisters say to people today, it's being the best you can be where you are now. So, and that's the small things as well. So it's things like being kind and things like being grateful.
As a Catholic, her absolute commitment to live the gospel, and that had a big personal cost in her life, but it never stopped her.
What's strong in my heart is that she saw the beauty of God, something beautiful in every person, no matter what.
In the age of selfies and self-centeredness, there you have the embodiment of compassion. So it's a motion of the heart, of the soul, of the mind, of the body that makes you suffer for others as if you are that other person. And then she embodied that. She is the embodiment of compassion. So God gave her that gift to feel other people's problems, challenges, pains, and heal them.
If we did as much as she did for everyone, our world would be so different.
She's a woman whose story needs to be told. I cannot think of a more remarkable New Zealand woman, full stop.
What struck me just hearing early on is how she lived a life of compassion, and that compassion was rooted in faith, and how that compassion changed our nation, that she did tangibly transform the culture and the spirit and the laws and the institutions of our country.
And it is that compassion, you know, that being really humble, being practical, and that's something I'd like everyone to know about her, and to recognise in themselves, to recognise in New Zealand. You know, our approach to the world is very Aubert.
I think she's undervalued as a key role model in New Zealand history. She's the Mother Teresa of New Zealand.
A grace like Suzanne's has neither beginning nor ending, because it's God's grace, it's eternal. So if we are humble enough to become a new chain, a new link in that human chain she started, she'll never be forgotten.
And especially when you engage not with the religion, not with the strictures of good behaviour in society of the day, but when you engage with the radical voice and invitations of God, you have the most exciting adventures of your life, and at the same time it's not just all about me, my I. You actually get to bless other people, and then you get to see them flourish, and that's also incredibly exciting.
If you've just joined us, that was the story of Suzanne Aubert. actually, it wasn't the story of her. I'll tell you the story about her. But yeah, that's some people's thoughts on her. People from Wellington. I recognised a few of them, from the lady from the Anglican church, the guy from the Presbyterian church, and then my previous workmate's husband. Johanna says, I guess you can actually read this, but she comes from a Catholic background, and that's how she knows of her. She loves that she was a gardener and a herbalist. Me too. Okay. So, in Lyon, France, a young woman, Suzanne, had repeatedly but unsuccessfully asked her parents' permission to join religious life. She worked as a nurse and studied botany and chemistry and medicine. In 1859, Bishop Pompierre visits his hometown of Lyon. David taught me how to say words in French. He visits his hometown of Lyon to recruit missionaries for his Auckland diocese. That I don't know how to say. Finally, when she was legally free to decide, at the age of 25, Suzanne accepted an invitation to become a missionary of Bishop Pompierre's Auckland diocese. Leaving on a whaling ship unsuitable for passengers, Suzanne spent 4 months journeying to New Zealand and arrived on the 30th December 1860. Suzanne initially worked at a boarding school for Māori girls in Auckland. Her interest in medicine deepened further, and she studied local plant materials and herbal remedies, and concocted her own rongoa, or herbal remedies. 11 years later, the bishop that called her to New Zealand died. The new Auckland bishop opposed Suzanne's work, and so she left Auckland to revive the Catholic Māori mission at Marist Māori Mission Station in Hawke's Bay. She became well known in the area, ministering to Māori and Pākehā, Catholic and non-Catholic, without compromising her own beliefs. Tolerance and friendship became her strategies for mission. In 1874, Suzanne pinned her hopes for a revival of the Māori mission on the new Bishop of Wellington, Bishop Redwood. He was to become a lifelong supporter of her. In 1883, by invitation of the Māori from the Whanganui River area, Suzanne left Hawke's Bay for Hiruharama, Jerusalem. That's Jerusalem in the North Island of New Zealand. And there was a black and white photo of a church there that you could see. So she went to Jerusalem to revive the Catholic mission. She was appointed to set up and lead a branch of the Marist Third Order Regular of Mary. It's here that the homegrown Catholic congregation, the Daughters of Our Lady of Compassion, was born. Suzanne first ministered to the Māori people and settlers and became known as the first district nurse. In Jerusalem, Suzanne became renowned for her medical and surgical services. Her remedies and medicines were in great demand. The sale of them helped to fund the sisters' mission. The native herbal remedies from Jerusalem were the first to be used to any notable extent by the non-Māori community. Suzanne had learnt to speak Te Reo Māori. In 1885, she wrote a complete manual of, well, I guess she wrote it before, but it came out in 1885, manual of Māori conversation and complete vocabulary. So impressive. And Gail said that she loves that she was fluent in Te Reo Māori and tikanga. So that same year, 1885, the sisters helped dig foundations of a new church, St. Joseph's Church, which was in the photo. Sadly, 3 years after that, it burnt down. So, Sister Suzanne, Aubert, and Sister Magdalene set off on a nationwide year-long collection tour to raise money to replace the church. They raised £1,000 and they rebuilt the church and had enough money for a convent as well. Archbishop Redwood appointed Suzanne as Mother Superior of the newly established Daughters of Our Lady of Compassion. During her tour, Suzanne had become acutely aware of the challenges faced by the poor and unmarried mothers and their babies. She took 75 babies and children into their care, but Jerusalem was too isolated from medical services. So Suzanne set her sights on Wellington, arriving unannounced in the city in 1899 with 2 sisters. The sisters immediately started work with Wellington suffering and destitute, planning a much-needed home for disabled people. They set up a soup kitchen that still operates today, and a crèche for children of working parents. Suzanne's vision and confidence grew as she tackled her most ambitious project to date. In 1907, a huge fundraising effort was made, and the impressive Our Lady's Home of Compassion was opened on the slopes of Island Bay, Wellington. Initially, for the care of children, it was for the care of children and babies. Civic as well as church leaders turned out in force for the opening. The sisters' non-secular approach and their tireless practical brand of Christianity had won the respect of the Wellington community. Suzanne never stood still. Her reputation spread far and wide. She rose to every challenge that came her way. In 1913, a report claims that the sisters' capacities are overstretched. So, Suzanne, at 78 years old, travels to Rome. This is in 1913. At 78, she travelled to Rome to present her case to the Pope. More than 4 years later, Pope Benedict granted the decree of praise to the Daughters of Our Lady of Compassion, and that decree changed everything. It protected the works that Suzanne Aubert had started, but widened her scope for healthcare. It protected her resolution that the work would be for everyone. It recognised her interpretation of New Zealand society and spirituality. In early 1920, a frail but triumphant Suzanne returned home to Island Bay, to the sisters who, in her absence, had remained true to her cause. Back at the helm, she arranged for extensive alterations to the Home of Compassion, for a surgical section. And in 1922, the sisters began nursing training for the new hospital. 66 years after first leaving for New Zealand on the 1st of October 1926, at the age of 91, Suzanne died in the presence of her sisters. As word spread, the crowds gathered to pay their respects. Wellington's streets and roofs were packed with people silently watching the hearse pass by. I saw a photo of it, and it's just incredible, the amount of people there. I think it's more than I've actually seen gathered in Wellington at the time. And I've been to one of their street festivals. It was widely reported to be the greatest ever funeral accorded to a woman in New Zealand. Condolences and tributes pour in from around the world. Following her death, Romans said to collect stories and information for the process of officiating Suzanne Aubert as a saint, or making her a saint. In 1995, a project was set up to decode Suzanne's medicinal recipes. It was unable to happen, they couldn't be decoded. But it did successfully document Suzanne's rongoa expertise and experience, define and protect the 100-year-old intellectual property, and lead to the New Zealand Biotechnology Heritage Award in 1999. This distinguished award recognised Suzanne as the first person to successfully combine Māori and Western medicines into products and to commercially extract New Zealand native plants. The first woman to launch a commercial biotechnology process in New Zealand, and the first to export such a product. What a woman. There is a website for Suzanne, and on it are written tributes and memories of her. I do encourage you to check out the website. It's just nice to read through the notes of people's memories of her. One of them is a note that one of the sisters wrote to her family sister about Suzanne Aubert. It said, "When I entered the Home of Compassion in 1907, Mother Aubert was already 73 years old, but still retained full use of her reason, her memory, and her fund of anecdotes was simply amazing. She was one of the wittiest and most charming of Frenchwomen. All sorts and conditions of people, from the governor and his lady to the poorest, was proud and glad to have a word with her. She was always the same, utterly unconscious of what people said or thought. If she was busy with hands and apron dirty, she would trot into the parlour to the most distinguished visitors. Human respect was entirely lost on her, and yet people loved her." One of the notes also said, she was the most famous person I'd ever met. And another note quoted her. That quote was, "Whose work is it? Surely not mine." And to me, that just speaks of her humbleness and praise to God and all that she did. So I'm just going to say a prayer of thanks as I finish speaking about Suzanne. God, I want to thank you for who Suzanne was. Thank you that you created her in your image. Thank you for the calling that you gave her and how you made a way for her through many hardships and opposition. Thank you for how she showed your love and your beauty for others. And thank you for the people that supported her along her way. Last Sunday was Baptist Women's History Week, the second year that Baptist Women New Zealand have celebrated this day. I might make it a habit to learn more about a woman of faith from the Bible or who lived on earth, not written in the Bible, maybe a long time ago, maybe currently, to learn about a woman of faith each fortnight. There is so much that we miss out on when we only see God through the lives of men or through the point of view of men. So it's good to read from different material. You can join in with me if you want. You don't know what you don't know. So here's a list of names in case you don't know where to start. You might pick up one or two and remember those of people that you want to learn about. Mary, mother of Jesus. Mary Magdalene, do you know she wrote a gospel? Esther, Susanna, Judith, Hagar, Sarah, Rebecca, Abigail, Rahab, Junia, Hannah, Tamar, Ruth, Eve, Delilah, Mary of Bethany, Martha, Priscilla, Deborah, Lydia, Huldah, Shira, Miriam, Rachel, the Queen of Sheba, and many others, including many unnamed women, and women who were known by their status, by which man they were connected to, or just their actions, maybe their sins. Joel Rosenberg wrote, "A common phenomenon in the Bible." Okay, I've got to be honest, I got this quote from Wikipedia, but I checked to make sure that it was from a good source. So it's from his book, Bible, the Biblical Narrative. A common phenomenon in the Bible is the pivotal role that women take in subverting man-made power structures. The result is often a more just outcome than what would have taken place under the ordinary circumstances. Law professor Jeffrey Miller explains that these women did not receive opposition for their roles, but instead they were honoured, which I think is quite exciting. So that's what I wanted to say about women today. I hope you've learned something. And Suzanne Aubert, she was an amazing woman. If there's any name that you remember today, maybe hers, would you go and look her up? Thanks, Debbie. Yeah, go and look her up. Easy peasy. Google, you'll find everything you need. But thank you for listening to me speak today. I hope that you have a great Sunday, and may God bless you as you go into the week. So yeah.